Oh, hi, glorious ABA conference attendees. My name is Claire Christian, and I like to describe myself as a multi-passionate storyteller, as that's kind of the best way to encompass all of the things that I do. I'm a theatre maker, a playwright and director. You may have seen a play I directed written by the incomparable Michelle Law called Single Asian Female. I am a youth arts facilitator and teacher and an author as well. I am so grateful that I get to hang out with you guys for a little bit and talk to you about my upcoming novel, It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake. So what I did is I put a shout out to my Instagram followers and said, right, I've got to do this thing for a bunch of babe and booksellers. What do I need to tell them? What are the things you're curious about? What is the information you want to know about It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake? So these were the most common questions that I thought I would round up and answer for all of you.
You've written YA before. Why the move to adult fiction?
So in 2015, I had a shocking revelation amidst writing what I thought was a play, when I quickly realised that it wasn't at all, and it was a novel. And this idea freaked me out because I was a playwright and I made theatre, and could I be an author? Could I be a novelist? What would that world look like? When I was about 8,000 words into that project, I sent it to a dear writer friend of mine and said, Dave, I think this is a novel. I think I'm writing a novel. Is that what I'm doing? And he read it and said, yes, that's what you're doing. Stop being silly. Keep going and get out of your own way. Thankfully, he did, and I finished that project and entered it into the 2016 Text Prize, which fortunately I won with my young adult novel called Beautiful Mess, which is a dual narrative story about Gideon and Ava, two teenagers who are trying to navigate the biggest, shittiest life things, whilst also trying to work out that being a teenager is hard, but there are still really beautiful bits amidst the mess. So Beautiful Mess changed my life. Hanging out with you people changed my life. Writing a book or becoming an author was my biggest and most secret realist dream that I had since I was little, but didn't tell anyone and didn't want to commit to doing it because it felt too scary. But now I'm here, and now that I know I can, you're not going to get rid of me. So after Beautiful Mess came out and the response to the book was beautiful and amazing, I started to think about what I wanted to write next, and ideas kept bubbling away, and what I decided was to let whatever idea had the most energy be the idea that I wrote next. Because like I learned coming from playwriting and theatre into writing novels, I didn't have to be defined as writing for one genre. I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller, and however the stories come out is how the stories come out. So now I have written a romantic comedy, a piece of contemporary fiction. That's the next story that I wanted to tell.
What was the inspiration for the book?
I read or heard Elizabeth Gilbert say something along the lines of, pay attention to the conversations that you keep having or that keep coming up, because that could be Muse trying to tell you something. And I loved that idea. So after Beautiful Mess came out, I just paid attention to kind of what was happening in my sphere. And I realized that I kept having conversations with women in particular, mostly in their 30s or 40s, that centered around the idea of, if only I knew then what I know now. Or more specifically, if only I felt the way I do about myself and my body now, then, predominantly in our 20s. And that was the conversation that I kept having, these kind of ideas of the way I feel about myself now would have impacted how I behaved then, the people I would have slept with, the decisions I would have made, the relationships that I would have gotten out of, the things I would have done or not done if my security in myself or my self-awareness or self-care or self-love was at a higher, more attuned level. And I loved this idea of missed opportunities and going back and righting the wrongs of your sexual past. I think about the woman I was when I was in my early 20s, and I was deeply insecure and had no concept of how to talk to someone that I fancied, or how to navigate that. And there are numerous missed opportunities or people that I wished I had just been more confident enough to say, hey, yeah, this is a thing, isn't it? And we like each other. The story that I think of is one night when I lived in London. I was 25 and I went to a gig and watched a man play guitar, and he was singing about his feelings. So of course I was like, we should have lots of sex and babies and get married, of course. And then throughout the night at the pub, we kept making eyes at each other, but heaven forbid I do anything about it. I then had to make a dash to run to the tube to get the last train, and ran quickly down, said goodbye to my friends, ran down the stairs, jumped onto the carriage, just about to miss the tube, and the only other person in this carriage was Guitar Man sitting across from me. So we have a conversation as we ride to our respective places, and as he's about to get off, he says, do you want to come with me? And I imploded and freaked out and went, no thank you, have a lovely evening. Look at all you romantics here. Everyone loves a good romantic story because you're like, and then what happened? Did you meet and fall in love? No, we didn't. That night was fine though. I got on a night bus and a palm reader told me that love was coming and to be patient. So the night wasn't a failure. But I think about that woman and this woman now that I am in my 36, who would have said, absolutely, let's get off the train together and see what happens. That is the premise. That is the world that Noni Blake lives in. That was where the inspiration came from, this idea of going back and having sex with the people you wish you'd had sex with. The idea then evolved and became more about pleasure and not just about sex, and how this woman wanted to center her cravings and her desires at the center of her life. Because I think we see more often than not, people do not do that. I think we look at the success of books like Eat, Pray, Love and even 50 Shades of Grey. And I think what those books say to me is that women in particular are just looking for opportunities to be selfish and center their own sexuality and center their own pleasure in the middle of their own life. So that's where the inspiration came from for It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake.
Who do you think the ideal audience is?
Great question. I think the audience for Noni Blake is anyone who loves a romantic comedy, anyone who loves uplifting literature, anyone who wants a bit of a literary joy fest or a sexy moment out from their life, or anyone who is looking to laugh at the foibles of a woman just trying to get it right, and maybe even anyone who is looking for inspiration of how to have more pleasure in their life, how to, in every way, not just sexually, how to put what they want and what their desire and what their intuition and their gut is, how to put that at the center of what they want and live via that. Noni starts small. She starts small. Her pleasure quest begins by eating a croissant and not feeling guilty about it. So this isn't about grand leaps of faith, although she does make those. But this is about small things and about how we can have more pleasure and more usness in our life, more you-ness, more realness in our life. So that's who I think the audience for Noni Blake is.
Hi Claire, can you tell me about Noni?
Noni Blake is a 36-year-old bisexual fat teacher who works at a high school. Because babes, right, what you know. Except Noni has been described as beige and constant and consistent, and Noni is a people pleaser, and she realizes quite early on, after her long-term 9-year relationship ends. We meet her 18 months after that event kind of shatters her life and everything she knew. And she's now someone who is trying to work out what her life looks like now, what she wants, who she is, and what she wants to go after. She's someone who is absolutely going through the motions of life, and that is not what she wants. But she has no idea where to start, and what an alternative life might look like for her. So this is all, the novel is about Noni Blake working out what she wants and what is going to make her happy and what is going to please her.
How did you find writing the sexy time stuff?
I will admit that I've realised that writing sex scenes comes with a strange vulnerability, I found, because, you know, I'm putting into the world a product that is very clearly going to say, this is what Claire Christian thinks is a sexy sex scene. Or this is what Claire Christian thinks is an awkward sex scene. And there was a moment where you're like, what if I have been doing it wrong all along? What if this is not sexy at all? Thankfully, people have read the book and assured me that I'm a-okay. So, phew. But yeah, so it's a weird thing to think that there will be my view of sex and sexuality in the world for people to read, but I hope that the sex scenes in It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake feel real and authentic and funny or sexy or insecure or all of the many things that sex is for Noni, and as part of her journey to kind of working out where her pleasure sits in her life, and as she gets more body confidence, as she gets more clear about speaking up for herself and what she wants, the sex that she has or the relationships that she has with people shift and change too. So that's why the sex in the book is important for Noni and her arc in the story, from not putting herself first to putting herself and her pleasure first.
Noni identifies as bisexual. Was that intentional?
Yeah, Noni's queerness and Noni's bisexuality was absolutely intentional. As a bisexual woman, as a queer woman, I wanted to write from a place of my own knowing, and I wanted to write about it in a way where I wanted to make a comment about bisexuality and queerness by not making a comment about it. Noni is just who she is. She is attracted to who she is attracted to. She has sex with who she has sex with, and this is just her. This is her version of the world and how she sees her own sexuality. So yeah, but it was important for me to center a bisexual character without ever really talking about her bisexuality, because it just is who she is, and it is a part of her identity. It's not the only part of her identity. And that was what was really important to me, is similar to how I view my queerness, I guess. It is just who I am.
I wanted to ask, what led you to write about women's empowerment?
I wanted to write about female empowerment in particular because that is the core of my politic, I guess. But I guess it's about me as a human being. I am all joy, all whimsy, all fan club t-shirt wearing, empower you, be the best person you can be. That is just what kind of runs through my veins and is in my DNA. I want people to be happy being themselves. And I think when we talk about self-love, people's butts clench when we talk about self-love, because we have gotten to a place now where we just think it's about take a bath, have a crystal, treat yourself. And what we don't talk about is the way that our societies and structures and the fucking patriarchy impose systems on all of us that tell us who we have to be, which then dismisses anything to do with who we actually are and what is at the core of our intuition and what we want to say yes to and what pleases us. And that's what I wanted to write about. So yes, this is a very specific story about a woman empowering herself to just be herself and say yes to the things that please her and say no to the things that don't, to start placing her intuition at the core of her life and then see what unravels. That's what was absolutely important to me. I did a survey when I was first starting to write It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake, and over 100 women responded anonymously. And I asked questions like, if pleasure was at the core of your life, what everyday things would that look like? Or what huge things would that take on? Or about fantasies? They were the kinds of questions and things that I was curious about. And the answers in that survey amazed me, because the things that women deemed as pleasurable that they weren't getting or weren't allowing for themselves were things like, I want to wear red lipstick and not feel self-conscious. I want to be the first person on the dance floor. I want to have sex outside in public. I want to buy lingerie. I want to eat a croissant and not feel guilty. Those small things felt unattainable to the women that answered my survey. And that is what's at the core of this book. I think it is a big, dreamy permission to be selfish, permission to say yes, permission to live the kind of life that you want to live book. Or at least that's what I hope it is. That's what I want it to be. And gosh, if a woman or a person reads It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake, and changes one thing or says yes to one thing or buys themselves a lipstick to wear, or is the first on the dance floor, or puts on some sexy lingerie, then fuck yes. Happy days. Even my dog is agreeing, because that is what it's all about, I think.
What comes first, character or plot?
For me, it is character first. Absolutely. I think it's my playwright brain, my theatre brain means that dialogue is what comes first for me. So I hear grabs of conversation or inner monologue. Particularly Noni came... yes, she does. She comes a lot in this book. Her voice was really strong in my mind. I was writing this voice, this woman, in the notes app in my phone for a while amidst the editorial process of Beautiful Mess, because the idea of jumping into another novel kind of scared me a little bit at first. Yeah, but definitely character, definitely dialogue, definitely voice comes strong and first before plot. I am totally a pantser through and through. I don't write sequentially. I kind of have an idea of beginning, middle, end, and then I write whatever scene I am inspired to write in the moment or on the day, which for you plotters in the room, I know that me saying those things just made you want to throw up in your mouth a little bit.
Hi, Claire. What's your writing process?
Like I said, I am a pantser. It's been a pleasure. Noni Blake was probably written over 2 years, and I like to write 1,000 words a day-ish to work to a deadline. I have a rough idea of the plot and the story, but it's very loose, and I usually write depending on what has inspired me. If I hear a piece of music that inspires a mood, or I've watched a film that has made me think about a story or a moment, I'll write that. And then a lot of my kind of back end of my process is piecing things together, or then once I'm seeing the project as a whole going, oh, what are you thinking? No, rewrite that. Yeah, so my process is a bit all over the place, but this is now my second novel, and I am halfway through writing my third that will come out next year. My process is becoming more honed and far better for everyone involved. Yeah, so I like to write in the morning. I like to write to a word limit every day. I'm trying to stick to a plan for the new book I'm writing, but we'll see what happens. That's generally my approach to most things in life. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and hearing a little bit about It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake, and my process. I cannot wait for it to be in the world and to be with you. When my friend Michelle Law read it, she described it as Queer as Folk meets Bridget Jones's Diary, which I think is a deeply complimentary and glorious way to describe the novel. I can't wait to hear what people think and it to be in the world. And I just want to say, I think what you do is so vital, because stories are at the core of our humanity. We always have told stories, and I think we always will. And I think people who care as deeply as I know you all do about ensuring we continue to do that are pretty much the fucking best. So thank you. Have a glorious day and time at the conference, in your pajamas, I hope, and I will see you all very soon.